Would you be the jerk for refusing to give your aunt her dog back? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for buying sister's boyfriend lunch? Hello all, female 26 here. While I was on the way home from the gym, I received a call from my sister's, female 18, boyfriend, male 19. Not abnormal, as he's usually over at our house. He was asking me if our alarm was on because he got to our house before my sister and wanted to double check if he could go in since she wasn't picking up the phone. I told him no, and I happened to be stopping at McDonald's on my way home and asked if he wanted anything. He told me chicken nuggets, so I picked those up for him, as well as for my sister. Today, my sister texts me saying, "If you want my boyfriend, just say that." I 100% thought this was a joke, so I replied, "Not my type," but I very quickly learned it wasn't. Then she replied with a paragraph telling me how buying him dinner was essentially coming on to him. So now I know she's not joking, and at first I tried playing nice and just tried reassuring her I have a zero attraction to her boyfriend, but that was answered with more rude comments from her. The last message I sent to her was, "Sister's name, you really need to grow up. I simply bought you both McDonald's on my way home. A simple thank you would suffice. Am I the jerk here, or is this completely normal?" Update, we've talked, she apologized, and all is good. Thank you for everyone who's chimed in. You will all get chicken nuggets on me. I would just like to know how I could, cash in that chicken nugget offer from OP. Getting some free chicken nuggets for just reading a Reddit post would be pretty sick. In all seriousness though, I think it goes without saying that the sister is acting very immature here, and OP's not the jerk. Consistent Shoe 9602 commented, "Not the jerk, your sister's just a teenager who's overreacting. Sounds like your last message was 100% on the money." OP replied, "My thoughts on it as well. I remember being her age and thinking every girl wanted my boyfriend, so I suppose it's natural. I'm hoping she takes this as a learning experience, and since then I've seen her in the house, and she apologized for assuming getting her boyfriend chicken nuggets is a confession of my love for him." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for feeding my family a fish dinner while I eat steak and potatoes? I'm 3 months pregnant, and almost every day I've been craving steak and sour cream baked potatoes. I never really cared for steak, I'm more of a chicken fingers and fries girly, but I'm guessing the baby must have loved steak in its past life because that's literally all I crave when I don't even care for it. Today, I made my family baked pizza spaghetti with fried catfish, a lunch meat salad, salad with chopped deli meat, and dinner rolls. I, of course, am making the same dish I've been eating for almost every day these last few months. I pretty much make 2 separate meals each night for my cravings. Last night after I served the kids and was getting ready to make my fiance's plate, he expressed he wanted steak and potatoes like me. Mind you, he was aware of the menu because I have my meals planned the night before. I told him I only had that one steak for me. He said, "Well, we can share." I politely told him that I'll need to eat all of my food since I'm feeding for 2, and this is all I have for the night, knowing I'll most likely still be hungry whilst you guys have a meal you can come back for seconds. I am now, in his words, a selfish woman using pregnancy as an excuse to be selfish. I asked what's different about today than all of the other days when I've been literally eating the same crap almost every day with no complaints. He said nothing but shook his head and said, "It's the principle, bae," and just walked off. We've barely spoken since, just a dry good morning and goodbyes. Am I the jerk? Maybe if he expressed that he wanted the same thing as me, I would have prepared for it, but he literally always eats what I make. I didn't know I had to be a mind reader. I think OP's absolutely on the money with the very last sentence here. I didn't know I had to be a mind reader. I think it's so important in your relationship to not get so hung up on something that somebody didn't do because they didn't have the clairvoyance to understand, oh, this is exactly what my partner would have wanted. Like, let's go back to chicken nuggets, for example. Let's say like you have a usual order at a fast food place. Your partner goes to wherever, they pick up the usual, they order something different for them, they get back, and you realize you would have liked having that other thing they ordered as well, but they didn't ask. Are you gonna resent them for that and let that ruin your day? Or are you gonna communicate and next time, just have that established that both sides will make sure to communicate and ask beforehand? Park Alexis commented, "Not the jerk. You're already making 2 separate meals every night to satisfy your cravings while still feeding the entire family. That alone is more than enough. The fact that this man had a whole butt meal in front of him, one that you took the time to plan and cook, yet decided to sulk and guilt trip you because he suddenly wanted what was on your plate, is ridiculous. If the principle is so important to him, then he can get his butt in the kitchen and cook his own dang steak next time. You are growing a whole human inside of you. You don't have time to be dealing with a grown man acting like a pouty toddler who didn't get the same Happy Meal toy. Our next story is, am I the jerk for agreeing to babysit for my friend without asking my partner first? I have a friend, 21-year-old female, who's a single mom to a 1.5-year-old toddler, and she started taking night classes to get her degree this semester. She has classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Originally, her mom had agreed to watch her child while she was in class, but her mom's work schedule changed, and she can no longer watch her on Fridays. I work as a nurse with fluctuating hours, but I'm always off on Fridays. So when my friend mentioned this to me a few weeks ago, I quickly told her I would gladly watch him for a few hours while she was in class. My boyfriend Nick is a stay-at-home dad to our 1-year-old. On Fridays, I take over the majority of the childcare. I watch our son for the most part by myself, while Nick plays video games or does some shopping, etc. It's essentially his off day. When I told Nick I'd agree to watch my friend's baby on Friday, I didn't think it was a big deal since I'm already doing the childcare on Fridays and don't expect my partner to help out. But he was upset that I agreed to this. He said that I should have discussed it with him beforehand. I told him it didn't matter since I'd be watching the kids by myself. This week was the first week I had both kids, and it wasn't too bad at all. My friend's toddler was only there for 3 hours. Nick was in his gaming room the entire time, and when my friend came to pick up her baby, he was very standoffish with her, throwing shots like, "I'm glad you came so early." After they left, I told him he didn't need to be rude to her, and I watched the kids without his help, so he shouldn't be acting this way. He's still being distant about the whole thing. I'm gonna lean towards OP not being the jerk just in the sense that it's probably not going to actually interrupt his day. I don't really know what the actual scope of his complaints are, but from what OP describes, it sounds like he's really going to be completely out of the way, not expected to do anything. I mean, they already have a 1-year-old, so it's not like really they can say noise complaints or something either. And Tizana commented, "Info, what was his specific objection? You're not getting enough quality time with your own child or not able to catch up on housework or other tasks because of having 2 kids? Him not liking a change in routine, cutting into family time? Do you normally volunteer to help people at your own or his expense? Do you otherwise complain about not having enough free time? That he thinks it would be a favor too much? Just spitballing. Personally, I think making a standing arrangement with your friend warrants some discussion with your partner beforehand, but barring other reasons, I don't see why he should have a problem with it." OP responded commenting, "His main thing is not discussing with them beforehand. I asked him if he would have said no if I did ask, and he just says, that's not the point, and keeps going about we're equals, so we should make these decisions together." Our next story is, am I the jerk, 34-year-old male, for stooping to a new low by kicking our neighbor's garage bins out of the way whenever she, 37-year-old female, leaves it in front of our driveway? Context: new neighbor moved in. She was nice enough at first, but she has a serious problem with how she handles garbage days. I'm not sure how the freak one woman can create so much garbage. She'll have her bins out, but it's always overfilling. Many times I've come out of my driveway to go to work to see a pile of spilled over fresh garbage sitting right in front of my driveway after the raccoons got to it, or all of her bins blocking my car from leaving. I've spoken to her many times about this, and she always says that she does, and claims it must be getting moved around by the wind or knocked over by raccoons. There is no way in heck all that garbage is getting blown around by the wind. The raccoon part, I believe. But there are locks on the garbage bins for a reason, and if you can't close it because there's too much trash, that's a you problem. Lately, even when I know she's home, she'll ignore me at her door. I always back out of my driveway, and I'll see the bins blocking my path. I tolerate moving them out of the way, even though it pees me the freak off every morning. What I can't tolerate is when raccoons get into her crap, and as I'm backing out, I see piles and piles of freaking garbage blocking my path. I've had to use a shovel to get it out of the way. I've been waking up a bit earlier to move her garbage, and the other day I asked myself why the freak I'm going out of my way to help this stupid idiot. I took a good look at her bins and just kicked them as hard as I could over to her side, and the garbage spilled over to her driveway instead of mine. I've noticed now she's slowly learning to take proper care of her garbage, and sometimes she even puts it on the other side of her driveway. She's been a lot better lately, but not perfect. She sometimes now locks the bin hinges and keeps it on the other side of the street, but whenever I catch it in front of my driveway, I will kick it back to her side. Told my wife about it, and she said this is so pathetically low of me. She doesn't have to wake up and deal with someone else's crap, so I don't really expect her to understand. Or maybe I am just a piece of crap. I don't know. I feel like I've done my part being nice. I don't give a freak anymore. Am I the jerk? Maybe I could understand arguing OP is the jerk just on the kicking the garbage cans over onto their property. But I gotta be honest, I don't really fault OP here. I would be just as upset as they are. And I think at some point with the trash getting spilled over all over in front of my driveway, I would be shoveling it and just like dropping it right in front of their front door or something. Like a "you haven't been doing anything about this, do something about it now" kind of level response. Windy Mint 443 commented, "Previous place I lived, the trash collectors had a right to not even pick up the containers where the lid couldn't close. It was a requirement due to the mechanical nature of the arm/clamp picking up the bins to upend into the truck. That was residential. At my office, we got fines if the bin's lid wasn't able to close. Not the jerk, that's super annoying and frustrating and should not be your problem, and she clearly wasn't getting the hint. My new neighborhood has a kid about 10 years old who likes to roll the emptied bins back up to our garages from the curb. It's sweet and he's tidying up and clearly has fun. He goes around the entire section of the neighborhood to do this every week after the collection truck goes through. However, I do have to watch out when opening my garage and planning to leave. My empty bin might be behind my car once the doors open, or it might be in the way when I come home, so I need to move it before I pull into the garage. But in this case, it's a slight inconvenience, no trash spilled, and I'd rather encourage a kid who wants to be helpful." Our next story is, "Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend to suck it up around my clown figurines?" Me, 26-year-old male, and my girlfriend, 24-year-old female, have been dating for 2 years. Since we started dating, she's known that I love clowns. I have several porcelain clowns displayed around my house on walls, hung from the ceilings on little swings and on shelves. I adore these weird little creatures. Well, last week, I bought 2 Venetian masks from the thrift store and they're in great condition. I got them for a decent price too. She hates them. She said they're creepy and give her bad vibes, whatever that means. I told her that I would take down the masks when she's staying the night, but I'm not getting rid of them. She told me that was fine. Yesterday, she got up and told me that we needed to talk. She told me that she's sick of seeing my weird decorations and clown toys everywhere, that they're ugly and creep her out. I asked her where this was all coming from because she has never mentioned my clowns before, and she said me bringing those ugly freaking masks into our home was her last straw, and my obsession with clowns was charming before, but now it's just disturbing. I told her that I would take down the masks when she was over, but 1, this isn't our home, it's my apartment. And 2, she's known about the clowns for years, and to try to stop me from decorating my place how I please is controlling. She told me either get rid of some of them or we're done. I told her to just suck it up while she's here, and if she can't, then I'll come to her place every week. She didn't like that answer and called me a child before leaving. I texted her to apologize for telling her to suck it up about the clowns, but she hasn't responded to me. So, am I the jerk for telling her to suck it up about my clown figurines? Edit/update. I wanted to clear up some things I saw in the comments. I had a small collection started by my grandparents when I was a baby. That's where I got my first swing jester. The collection has grown in the last 2 years to expand to common decor and not just dolls. For the update, she saw the post, she read the comments, and called me today. She wasn't too happy about being called the jerk, but she apologized for being controlling. Turns out she wanted to see if I would get rid of my collection if it meant keeping her, like it was some relationship test. Note, she did really hate the Venetian masks and didn't like that they're hanging above my bed. I told her that if it came down between her needing me to get rid of them or sell them for expenses, then I would of course do that. But I'm not just going to get rid of my collection because someone says so. She asked if we could move on from this, and I told her no. I don't like that she tried to test my love by asking me to get rid of my collection. She left, we're officially broken up now. On the bright side, I can fill my house with more clown dolls. I even found a music box one online that I might get. Thank you everyone for helping me figure out that I wasn't in the wrong, and to those saying I'm a serial killer for owning clowns, I've read quite a few comments from people collecting dead things, so I think I'm in the clear on that. So say what you want about collecting the clowns, it's probably a little bit unique in taste, and there's definitely a lot of people out there who do have a fear or a phobia of clowns, especially the ones that are a little bit more old school in the makeup application. Like if it was something like she literally could not function around those masks or those clown dolls or whatever, and OP still wanted to be with them, sure, it's one thing to say like I cannot be around those. But to find out that it was all just a relationship test to see what you would be willing to give up for her, I mean, in a way, you should almost be grateful that they showed their true colors and intentions here, so you could move on from them before it was too late or you did get rid of some of your prized collection. Fun Effective 6846 commented, "Not the jerk. As someone who isn't into clowns but loves Venetian masks, I can understand being creeped out by some of them. However, her turning this on your entire interest for clowns that you've had your whole relationship makes her the jerk. Also, if she's giving you ultimatums over how you decorate your own space based on your own interests, she's not the one. There will be someone who will appreciate your collection, if not add to it themselves." OP responded commenting, "That's the crazy thing. She's bought me little clowns before. She found a print of 2 clowns kissing at an art fest she went to and picked it up for me." This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mother to stop telling people the story behind my name? I, 15-year-old male, and my mother, 39-year-old female, have similar names due to my mother naming me after her. I don't dislike my name at all, but the story behind it and how my mother constantly wants to tell it to the world is the problem. For backstory, I'm her second child, and for her first child, my older brother, 20-year-old male, she wanted to know his gender, and she found out and named him. For me, however, she decided to keep it a surprise. However, she was for some reason confident that I would be female and was dead set on naming me after her. Her name is Alexandra, so she would have named me Alexandra as well. Fake names. When I came out male, she simply named me Alexander, fake name. However, she would constantly tell everyone she befriended, if we were together, the story on how I was named. It embarrasses me to no end, and I've told her over and over to please not tell that to every new friend of hers or I make. She even told all of my friends' parents the story, despite me asking her not to tell them. She wants to meet my friends' parents for the first time if I want to sleep over for whatever reason. This all boiled down to Thursday when my mother and I went to the grocery store, and as we were leaving, a duo of charity workers came up to us to ask if we were willing to donate to their cause. My mother, being the social butterfly she is, sparked up a conversation with them. As the two of them introduced themselves to us, my mother followed suit and, of course, told them the story I dreaded she would. "My name is Alexandra, and this is my son Alexander. He was supposed to be a girl and take my name, but he came out a boy, so I named him after me." I got a bit angry and told her, "I really wish you wouldn't tell every stranger you meet on the street that. It makes me feel embarrassed and mad." It got silent and my mother's face twisted and just told the charity workers that she'll donate next time and started walking to the car. The car ride home was silent, and when we got home, she told me that I really embarrassed her back at the store, and that I should have told her something after we got in the car that I didn't like her telling that story. I've said to her that I've told her repeatedly that I don't like her telling everyone with a pulse that she befriends that story, and that I got fed up with her blatantly ignoring me and my request to stop. She just told me to go to my room and to not come out. She of course told everyone in my family what I did, and my stepdad and grandparents said that I shouldn't have embarrassed her like that and to apologize to her. My brother and best friend told me I was right to call her out since I've told her many times to stop embarrassing me with that story and that she needed to learn what I felt. I do feel bad and want to apologize and talk to her, but at the same time, I still feel like I'm right and that she needed to feel what I feel. So, am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk, and honestly the story of where it's basically, yeah, I was hoping for a girl but he came out a boy so I had to change his name. How many people are going to be proud of a story like that? It's not really surprising to me that it kind of got to a point where OP's like, shut the choice word here up, mom. Light Photographer commented, not the jerk. When she embarrasses you and you've asked her to stop, this is the way. fight fire with fire. Here's how this works. Every time she tells the story, she gets a sweet smile out of people. This provides a gentle social dopamine kick. If she listened to you, she would not get that kick. She doesn't even think about it. Telling the story is associated with a little dopamine kick. You're telling her that you don't like it does not register. The positive connection between story equals positive feedback is a direct link in her brain. Your whining takes the long route of reason. Solution: you associate the story with a negative feedback. Example: every time she starts telling the story, you interrupt and tell the person, "My mother loves to tell how I got a girl's name. Even though I've told her I've heard it enough, she values the approval of strangers over the feelings of her own son." Make it short, snappy, and spot on. She will not like it, but keep it up, and in her brain the wiring will change from "telling this makes me feel liked" to "telling this makes me feel embarrassed." You have every right to tell your version of the story. Just take all the punishment at home, and then in the next situation, you do it again. You must reinforce this a couple of times. Our next story is, am I the jerk for leaning on a nearby wall after being denied use of gym equipment by a woman doing supersets? So my apartment building has a small exercise area, including a cable crossover machine, an adjustable bench, dumbbells, some treadmills, and a small side room for yoga or other bodyweight or kettlebell exercises. The gym was empty this morning, except for one woman doing row exercises on the cable crossover machine. I noticed that she had placed her phone next to the bench with a couple of dumbbells. For context, I'm a tallish guy, and she's shortish and appears non-binary, which is fine by me. I'll refer to her as she here because I don't know her pronouns or how she personally identifies. I specify this here because it seems like this plays into the dynamic from her perspective. "Can I use this bench?" I ask. "No," she replies, "I'm doing supersets." I was a bit taken aback. There's room for 2, maybe 3 people in the resistance or weight training area, and she was using every piece of equipment. Not sure what to do, I lean on a nearby wall and start looking at my phone. I'm a bit miffed and look up every so often to see when she'll be done. She takes her earphone out and says something to the effect of, "Are you just going to stand there?" And we get in a big argument. I say something to the effect of, "What else am I supposed to do? You won't let me work in." "I don't want you up in my space. Go do something else," she says. "So I can't do pull-ups on the cable crossover while you're using the bench?" I reply. "No, I don't want you up in my space," she says. "That's just bad etiquette," I reply. It then continues like this for a bit. I accuse her of being rude. She accuses me verbatim of using my male privilege. Eventually, she finishes her sets and leaves. In every gym I've worked out at, it would be considered rude to bogart multiple pieces of equipment while others have to wait. I lived abroad for years before this. Is this still the case in US gym culture? Am I the jerk for leaning on a nearby wall and waiting, rather than going and stretching or running on the treadmill? OP's definitely not the jerk here. It's a communal apartment complex gym setup. It's probably going to be cramped, and there's clearly going to be an expectation that you should try to share wherever possible. Can I also just say that I really don't understand where she was trying to come from as far as saying using your male privilege here? Like, is there something I just don't inherently get about OP's actions in the story in regards to male privilege? Or is this just a very poor usage of like the male privilege argument and it's giving it like a bad name when in other situations it could very well be an actual argument? Not creative at all 16 commented, "Not the jerk. She doesn't get to bogart all of the machines meant for the use of everyone in the complex. More so, she can't demand that you not even be in her space. If she wants private gym time, she needs to reserve and pay for that in a space that's not meant for the use of everyone living in the complex." Next time, I would report her to the main office so there's a paper trail in case she tries to make crap up. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my husband not to make extra food for our kids anymore? Me, 40-year-old female, and my husband, 40-year-old male, have 3 kids, 9-year-old female, 8-year-old male, and 6-year-old female. Whenever I cook, the kids may or may not like it. If they don't like it, that's fine. They can go eat some fruit or something because I'm done. If they don't want fruit or something, they're not hungry. When my husband cooks, if any of them don't like it, usually just the youngest one, in both my case and his case, he'll make a whole other quick meal for her. That's fine for him, but it becomes an issue for me when I refuse to make something else besides what I cooked, and they say, "But Dad does," and my husband will come in and cook the complaining person something. I asked him yesterday if he could stop that, because I don't want them thinking because they can ask him if I say no. He said, "It's food," and kind of brushed me off, and that started an argument we kind of decided we'd just postpone till today. Am I the jerk for wanting him to do this? I don't think OP is the jerk. It's one thing if OP made something that one of those kids absolutely despises, like they will not eat, sure. But it's not like OP doesn't give them other options. There is fruit or probably whatever else is still around the house. I just think that there's a lot of good to be found in the rule that OP's trying to establish here, which is basically, you can't always pick and choose. It really kind of is just working against overly spoiling your kid. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to give my aunt's dog back? So a year ago, my aunt, female 61, decided that she wanted to sell her dog that she'd had for 5 years because it was too much work for her and her husband. Her and her husband are extremely wealthy with kids who have moved away from home. She doesn't work, so she had spent most of her time at home with the dog. About a year before she decided to sell her dog, our family had lost our beloved fur baby of 15 years due to illness and were completely heartbroken. So when we got the news she wanted to sell her dog, we offered to take her in. We had spent time with her dog before and bonded really well, so we knew the transition would be easy for her. She said if no one wants to buy her after a few days, she'll give her to us for free. Well, we gladly accepted. She gave her to us with the intention of us having her forever, and we thought that was that. We had her for 5 months, and it was amazing. We love her with every ounce of our body. She got spoiled rotten, and it was just so good to have a dog again. During the 5 months, my aunt traveled to Europe and some other countries and was enjoying her luxurious life. About a month after she returned from her travels, she starts to hint to my mom on the phone that she wants her back. She eventually full-blown started asking for her back because she missed her. We initially refused and said no and told her it's unfair, but she eventually guilt-tripped me and I agreed to give her back. She ended up taking her back. Our family was absolutely devastated. Well, not even a month later, she tells us she's moving to an apartment and that they don't allow dogs, so we can have her back. Now, remember, these people are rich, and if they truly loved the dog, they could have found a place that accepted pets. We agreed on the premise that she was not going to ask for her back. She agreed, and she brought her back to us. Well, we've had our dog for about 6 months nearly, and have changed the ownership and chip info into our name and all. Guess who calls last week? My aunt, starting to hint that she's lonely and wants the dog back. My mom gently refused and changed the subject. In the last 24 hours, there has been an all-out argument between us and her, accusing us of taking her dog, calling us manipulative, and just general nasty stuff. We have refused to give the dog back, and she's more or less saying that she won't forgive us and that will be the end of the relationship. So am I the jerk for refusing to give her our beautiful dog back? My opinion here is going to be very simple, one ruling and one sentence. Not the jerk. Why would you give somebody else your dog? Can I just say though, taking a wider look at this, why did OP even give the dog back in the first place? After that first 5-month stretch, there's just no way that I see somebody who has a dog for 5 years and then turns around and says, too much work, I'm gonna try to sell them. And then 5 months later comes back like, you know what, maybe I kinda do want the dog back. In my opinion, at that point, you've lost all privilege of that a long time ago. If you want to give like a timeline of like a warranty on something like that, that would be like a 1-week warranty tops. Fairytale16 commented, I wouldn't say everybody sucks here because it's a weird situation. If she had sold or given away this pup outside of the family, she never even would have gotten the chance to get her back. But because it's family, she had the leverage to manipulate getting her dog back. And like OP said, they got manipulated and guilt-tripped but are now doing the right thing, not falling for that anymore. The aunt is the only jerk here. Honestly, block her and cut her out. Capable Restaurant 11 commented, thank you for your insight. It's rather obvious that OP was manipulated by his aunt, and family manipulating you can be the worst. It was also obvious that they loved the dog and treated it really well. It's also obvious that they were heartbroken upon losing the dog, When they got the dog back, they made sure to get it microchipped, etc. In my eyes, OP's not the jerk. Continue to love and enjoy the dog, OP. Your aunt can go kick rocks. Not the jerk, not the jerk, not the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for snapping at my boyfriend's friend for touching my hair? I'm 15-year-old male, black, and I live in a predominantly white area and go to a mostly white school, and I'm pretty introverted. I have a fro, and the amount of people who will just up and try to start touching my hair is wild. It's gotten to the point where it upsets me. I met my boyfriend Colt, 15-year-old male, at a wrestling meet a few months ago, and I let him play in my hair and I play in his curly Jew fro. It's just kind of an intimate, soothing thing between us. We go to different schools, so we don't hang around each other's friends a whole lot. Saturday, he was having like a movie marathon with some of his friends, and he wanted me to come. While there, one of his friends, some white girl named Madison, starts just playing in my hair, saying it's softer than she thought. I immediately jerked back and asked her, "What are you doing?" She tells me she just wanted to see what it was like. I snapped at her that I wasn't a dang dog, and she gets all defensive, saying that she saw Colt doing it and thought it was okay. I yelled at her that I'm not dating her and went home. Colt came over later and apologized for her, but he says I didn't have to get so upset and go off on her like that. He says people come up to him trying to touch his Jew fro to see what Jewish hair feels like all the time, and he never took it that seriously. I tell him it's kind of different, but he still thinks I overreacted. Am I the jerk? I think OP's pretty clearly not the jerk, and honestly, I would love to hear the debate from people who say that OP is the jerk. I really don't think somebody invading your personal space and doing something on your actual person that you're not comfortable with is ever going to be valid for calling that person uptight if they get upset about it. SQ Madriel commented, "Not the jerk. Remind Colt that body autonomy means you decide who touches you. If he still insists it's no big deal, make an example of him. Also, you're right, it's different. It's a whole historical thing with how African hair is perceived and treated. Colt can research it himself, or he can take your word that it isn't cool, apologize for minimizing your feelings, and instruct his friend on why her behavior was out of line and that she should apologize." Our next story is, am I the jerk? Found out my mother-in-law was smoking meth in my house, kicked her out. About 8 months ago, I decided it would be a good idea to invite my mother-in-law to live with us to enable my wife to get a job without struggling to afford childcare. It was decent at first. My son loves her, my wife is happy to have her mom around. Backstory though, mother-in-law is a recovering methamphetamine addict that had seemingly turned over a new leaf. Seemingly. I've been helping her when asked, moving her to and from houses, paying for her stored items and moving them to her, letting her live rent-free in a spare room in my home as long as she helped out and cooked occasionally. Since bringing her in, things quickly went downhill. Our agreement was fairly vague, but I felt like respect for me and my family was implied. She had an overnight guest without asking me or even letting me know. One day I wake up and there's a strange man in my house. I politely asked him to leave and he did. I told her that was not okay. Strangers in my house is not an 8 a.m. thing. 2, sold her car to another questionable friend and bought another, only to have a second questionable friend borrow it for a 500+ mile trip to Eastern Oregon and back. During said trip, the car broke down and was towed by AAA across 6 counties. For free. We still haven't seen the car since. 3. The incident. After all of these questionable behaviors and odd stories, I had grown very suspicious. Something wasn't right, so I just poked my head into her room. I wasn't hunting, but a handful of pipes are hard to miss. I took pictures and left. After informing my wife and asking her what she thought they were, all she could do was cry and ask, "Why isn't our boy enough for her?" Her heart is broken all over again because her mom has picked drugs over her own children time and time again. Now she's picking drugs over her grandchildren. 24 hours pass, and I can't find time to comfort her. I waited until the next day and went back into her room just to see if I was crazy. The pipes were moved and clearly used. Now I'm sure. I waited until later in the day and asked her to talk. I confronted her with the pile of pipes and baggies and demanded an explanation. She played dumb until I demanded she act like an adult. She admitted they were hers and that she was using. I told her to leave. She had until Saturday to collect her crap, but she could not stay another day, another moment in my house. She left voluntarily and did not assert her rights. I asked her to leave rather sternly, and she left. Cut to tonight, my wife is woken up by her mother calling from the hospital because she tried to walk the 12 miles from her friend's house to our house and collapsed in the ditch. She now claims I illegally kicked her out, which I didn't. I told her to leave, she went, and is causing my wife even more turmoil. Am I the jerk here? I think OP's pretty clearly not the jerk here just because you don't want somebody that's using that kind of stuff around your kids and in your household. I don't know if they got busted, if there would be a legal liability that ends up extending to OP or anything like that, but still, you just don't want that kind of thing happening under your household and in front of your kid, right? Dinko from the North commented, illegally? I thought she didn't pay rent. Not the jerk. Both literally and figuratively, she hasn't got a leg to stand on. OP responded commenting, never once. Oregon has crazy squatters' rights, so even if you don't pay rent, you can't be kicked out without being legally evicted. I asked her to leave, she left. Thus not a legally required eviction. I've been through this once before. Also, cause she fell in a ditch. Our next story is, am I the jerk for wearing an engagement-looking ring? So I, 26-year-old male, don't wear much jewelry due to it either not feeling nice and I don't like the look of most stuff. I went thrifting a month ago and found a gold ring inlaid with a thin black stone in the middle. It felt and fit amazing on my left ring finger and I started wearing it. I met my friend today, 26-year-old female, while wearing it, and she was shocked and asked when I got engaged. I was confused and asked what she meant since I'm single, and she just pointed at the ring. I laughed and said no, it just looked cool. She responded with accusing me of catfishing girls. To be fair, I have noticed some unusual positive attention lately from women, but attributed it to me losing weight. Now she's mad and calling me a freak boy, but I can't really see what I did wrong. Am I the jerk? So OP's not the jerk here because they literally are single. You can't be a freak boy by wearing a ring finger ring when you literally don't have anything that would actually make it catfishing. If the criteria for you to date somebody or sleep in the same bed as someone is solely the assumption you get from what the person is currently wearing, I think that's the real problem, not OP wearing a ring on their left ring finger. That said, even if it did get OP that attention, I understand if it goes against your religious beliefs. But religion aside, what actually would be wrong if OP did engage these women who are initiating to OP? Open Intention 2066 commented, not the jerk. I've only recently gotten engaged and I've worn a gold ring on my left hand for the last decade. I don't care what others think. I personally do it to keep unwanted advances from men, so on the flip side, maybe the women are being nicer because they don't see you as a danger. A lot of women really want men to treat us like possible friends and with general respect rather than just objects of sexual desire. I know I do. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend to just let me watch a movie? You know that thing where you come home and tell each other about your day? My girlfriend has this habit of only doing it when I'm trying to pay attention to something else. I come home, she doesn't talk about anything, we do the chores that need doing, I try to start conversation while doing them and she barely responds, we make dinner together in complete silence. If I try to initiate conversation, she just gives me one-word answers or uh-huhs. Again, she says nothing about her day. We sit down and have dinner and eat in complete silence. Again, she barely responds when I try to start a conversation. Then after dinner, we sit down to relax a bit. I wait to see if she wants to talk about anything, but she's just scrolling through her phone. So then I start watching a movie or a show, and then, as soon as it starts, suddenly she starts telling me all about her day. I'm the kind of person who doesn't put on a movie just for background noise. If I'm watching a movie, then I'm watching it. That's it. I'm trying to pay attention to the movie and she's rambling on about what happened at work, what she needs from the supermarket, what her dad said on the phone, what she needs to do tomorrow, what happened with her sister, and on and on and on. And then she gets mad when I only give her one-word replies like she gives me. I've asked her before why she doesn't talk during dinner, but she just got angry and never explained. So yesterday, we started watching a movie and, like usual, she starts talking and not paying any attention, and then she starts complaining that the movie doesn't make any sense and that she's not understanding the story. I told her it would make sense if she was paying attention, and she got mad and said that I only care about movies and don't care about what she has to say. I tried again to tell her that I always try to start conversations with her, but she never engages, and only starts talking after I've already started doing something else. She said I never talk about anything interesting, so I told her her work stories aren't interesting either. Now she's mad and giving me the silent treatment. I think I'd kind of like to know what everybody hearing this thinks. This is either a not the jerk or a everybody sucks here kind of thing, because clearly the issue to me is communication. Well, to be fair, I guess that's kind of obvious, but still. Like, the problem here is OP and their partner can't seem to communicate about when to communicate or how to communicate. Jeepers Creepers 74 commented, "Not the jerk. I'm sure I'll get downvoted for overanalyzing internet strangers based on limited data, but I suspect girlfriend only values your attention if she feels she has stolen it away from something else. It's a manifestation of insecurity. She can go to therapy to deal with this, or you could start playing movies, podcasts, or whatever during chores and dinner to get the conversation going." Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking my autistic daughter to have lunch with her autistic male friend and his father? Both autistic adults don't drive. When my fiance doesn't want me to, my 28-year-old daughter is autistic and doesn't drive. I take her everywhere. She wants to take out her 32-year-old autistic male friend for lunch for his birthday. He doesn't drive and can only tolerate his father driving him places. The four of us have met up about 3 times a year for the past 3 years, so that my daughter and her friend can get together and have lunch at a restaurant. Both of them have sensory issues, and sometimes the restaurant is too crowded or loud, or there's a bug flying around, etc., and one of them needs to leave ASAP. My daughter and her friend will sit together at a table, and the father and I, the drivers, will sit at a different table. The father and I sit and talk about life with our kids. I have a fiance of 17 years, and the father is married. My fiance has a major problem with this situation. He feels like I'm going on a date with the father, and that my daughter should just ride with them to the restaurant. My daughter feels more comfortable riding with me, and we can leave together if there's a problem. I feel more comfortable with this too. Am I the jerk for not considering my fiance's feelings? Situations like this is why it's hard for me to hear the sentiment of you should never invalidate somebody else's feelings or your partner's feelings, because what do you do when it's so out of touch or off base like this? You're literally there having parent time small talk with this other guy so your kids can have fun, and the fiance is out here trying to add this element of perversion or romance or whatever. You don't want to invalidate your partner's feelings, but what if that feeling is just pure, unadulterated insecurity? Sales Tax Black Cat commented, "Not the jerk, for freak's sake, can't the children just have a good time? My nephew's autistic, he lives for times like this. You've been with your fiance for 17 years and he doesn't get it? Sad." Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my boyfriend's dog's vet bills when he's always broke? So I, 23-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend, 27-year-old male, for a little over 2 years. He has a dog, Buster, who I absolutely love, but the thing is, my boyfriend is terrible with money. The kind of guy who gets paid and immediately spends half his paycheck on games, random collectibles, eating out, and whatever new hobby he's fixated on that month. Then, by the middle of the month, he's suddenly broke and so stressed about bills. Anyway, last week, Buster got really sick and needed urgent vet care, which ended up costing a few $100s. My boyfriend called me panicking, saying that he didn't have enough and asking if I could help. And yeah, I could afford it, but honestly, I was so frustrated because this isn't even the first time he's been in a financial crisis over something he should have planned for. I told him I love Buster, but this was his responsibility, and he should have set aside emergency savings instead of constantly blowing money on nonsense. That's when he hit me with, "So you just let Buster suffer?" No, but also, why is this suddenly my problem? I suggested he ask his family, or, I don't know, maybe not act like I'm an ATM, and he got all huffy and passive-aggressive about it. Now he's been distant, and some of our mutual friends are saying I was heartless for not helping when I clearly had the money. I feel guilty because I do love that dog, and I get that emergencies happen, but at the same time, I'm not his financial safety net, especially when he constantly refuses to be responsible with his own money. Am I the jerk? I absolutely get where OP's coming from. That said, if I were in OP situation, I probably would be paying the money for the dog. Boyfriend be darned and all of the rage you have for his inadequate handling of his money. If it's a dog I know well and I adore and I care about, I just know my heartstrings are going to be sufficiently pulled. I would probably be pretty livid while firing up Venmo. Unhappy Cryptographer commented, "Not the jerk. If you have pets, you are responsible for them. We have 3 cats and put 60 euros per month aside for yearly vet visits and emergencies. That's what a responsible owner does. Your boyfriend shouldn't have a dog at all. He isn't financially mature. He could easily sell some of his collectibles and voila, there's money for the vet bill, but he doesn't even think about this because his material things are more important than his dog." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not paying my friend back? Throwaway, my friend let me borrow $150 2 weeks ago. She gave it to me in cash, so I was going to pay her back in cash. When I got paid this past Friday, I texted her letting her know that I was going to drop it off to her on my way home from work. She responded by saying to Cash App her instead and immediately followed up with her cash tag. I sent it right away. About an hour later, she texted me asking if I could send it ASAP. I replied saying that I did. She said she didn't get it. I started panicking, thinking I sent it to the wrong person, but she responded before I did and said she sent me the wrong one. For example, instead of Jane Doe 123, she sent me Jane Doe 13. I simply said yikes. Here's where it gets messy. She asked me if I could send it again. I didn't have it. I'm struggling right now, hence the reason I had to borrow it in the first place. Even if I did have it, I don't feel like I should have to give it to her. If it was my mistake, I would have figured something out, but that's not the case here. I didn't want to tell her that though. I didn't know how to respond, so I just said, let me call Cash App. Well, they pretty much told me tough luck. I thought hard about what to say, but eventually I texted her saying, I called them and they said there's nothing they can do. I really don't have it. I don't know what else to do. She said okay. I haven't heard from her since then. I figured she was upset. Anybody would be when they lose money. I found out this morning though that she's ticked off with me. One of our mutual friends, Ash, called me. Apparently Jane believes I should send her her money and figure out a way to get the other $150 back. That's not going to happen. I want to call her, but I wanted to ask if I'm the jerk first. My judgment will determine how I approach this conversation. Edit, thanks for all the replies. I wanted to respond to more of you, but I was overwhelmed. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did. Anyways, I did end up requesting the money back. They haven't sent it, of course. I didn't initially request it because I didn't and still don't think they would send it, but some of you convinced me it doesn't hurt to try. I still haven't called her, but I do know that I'm not going to send any more money. I did talk to Ash more about it and she thinks I should offer to work it off. I'm okay with that. I'll call her tomorrow, but I probably won't update again. But again, I appreciate all the responses. 1,000,000% OP's not the jerk here. They messed up giving the wrong username. You can go down that road of playing the coulda, shoulda, woulda game where, oh, maybe OP should have triple checked before sending the money over. It was through and through the friend's mistake. I'm sorry that they made that typo, but OP's not going to have to pay $300 because you couldn't send the right username to OP. Responsible Moose 521 commented, not the jerk. Every time I send money through some kind of app, I'm always so nervous about it and double checking names or phone numbers. I just don't get how someone wouldn't double check what they sent you and then act like it's your fault for doing what they asked. Looks to me like she threw her $150 out the window by being careless. Our next story is, am I the jerk? My husband doesn't think having parents to stay should be a house buying consideration. I, 41-year-old female, live with my husband, 45-year-old male, in a UK seaside holiday destination. We've been looking to move house for a couple of years, and I thought we had similar considerations. We spiraled in an argument today over my dream of having a house where our extended family could come for beach holidays, even while we're working. My husband is an introvert who works remotely. I'm an ambivert who can only work from home 1 day a week. So this dream of mine would mean having a house where he could be at work undisturbed by any family who might come to stay. I was thinking garden office or something like that. We've talked about this sort of thing before, but I didn't realize he had a problem with my parents staying. He said that he's fine with either of our siblings and their family staying whenever, as they'll be out in the day, but he doesn't want my parents in the house while he's working. His live 5 minutes away, mine 3.5 hours. For context, my parents did walk behind him on a video call once. He was in the kitchen instead of his office, and ring the doorbell after I asked them not to when I was on one another time. I had given them a key, so he says he doesn't trust them not to interrupt him. They've never gone out of their way to disturb. The few times I can recall have been accidents. He says that having a dream where my parents can come to stay whenever they like while he's work from home and I'm out at the office means I'm only happy when he's being made uncomfortable. To be clear, they wouldn't be coming unannounced or anything like that. My example is, there's a heat wave forecast and I can't take the time off, but they want to come down to the beach. The two main things we're arguing about, and the reason I'm here are, he said buying a house with other people in mind is stupid. I agree, I shouldn't have said it was priority and have apologized. I clarified that I want us to find a house that's perfect for our needs and then share it with the people we love. We're fortunate to live in a holiday destination, and I would love to share that good fortune, particularly with my parents while they're still alive. They're in their 70s. He can't understand why I'd want my parents to stay while I'm out working in the day, that it's not really spending time with them. He thinks my reasoning is irrational and that if I try to explain to anyone, they would agree with him. So here goes. While most of the time I can take days off when my parents visit, they're retired and could visit more often. It's a long drive, so them coming for a longer stay less often makes it more worth it for them and less tiring. A week instead of a weekend, not weeks or months. For me, it would give the illusion of them living nearby for a while. I know this part sounds silly, but I like the idea of them being around after work. I'd rather see them all day, but seeing them after work a bit more often would make it feel like they were closer by. So, am I the jerk, and how can I approach a compromise? It's kind of complicated for me because OP highlighted that their partner is an introvert. Not only that, but they're working from home and they would be left alone with your parents all day mostly. And also, even though they were accidents, they still had interruptions happen, so that's obviously going to be fresh in their mind. I completely understand OP's desires, but it doesn't really sound like something that's very compatible with the life their partner wants to have. TigGirl71 commented, "You're the jerk. Just because it was an accident when they interrupted him doesn't make it less of an interruption. As someone that works from home full-time, having anyone extra in the house is a disruption. Go to the kitchen to make lunch, someone else is there. Try to take a call, someone walks through. Go grab a cup of coffee, someone's in the way or wants to chat. They're your parents, they're yours to entertain." Our next story is, am I the jerk for removing my brother's girlfriend from our Life 360? I, 24-year-old female, have a younger brother Matt, 21-year-old male, who has a girlfriend, 21-year-old female, named Selena. They got together back in 2021 and have had 2 babies during their relationship, who I love dearly. Throughout their relationship, I've tried to be cordial and friendly towards Selena. I've heard many times of how people don't get along with their sibling's partner, and I didn't want to be one of those people. Throughout the years, though, I have heard countless gossip from Selena about what she thinks about people in my family, including my mother. At the time, I would argue with my mother and sister, 25-year-old female, in her defense, which now looking back, I regret deeply. My younger brother currently works a food truck that my parents have loaned him to make a living for his family, while Selena stays home with the kids. During this time, my mom, 52-year-old female, and I have been working with him, sometimes without pay since some weeks it's too slow. While working with my brother is fine, I felt that Selena sees herself as a boss and sees my mother and I only as employees. There are times when my mom asks my brother if she can spend time with her grandkids, but he says no because they are with her family. We set up a Life 360 a few years ago when they only had 1 kid and I would babysit, so it was Matt, me, my mom, and my sister. Recently, I noticed she paused her location sharing since January 28th. I didn't think anything of it, but she would still monitor everyone's locations. Since when my brother and I are working the weekends, he lets me know when my mom is near as soon as he gets off the phone with her. I didn't think this was fair since she's still able to view our locations. This morning, I was talking to my mom and she was sharing how she wants to see her grandkids and how she invited Selena to an outing on Saturday morning. She ghosted my mom on it. That was my final straw and I removed her from the account. So Reddit, am I the jerk? To be honest, I feel like there's problems all around here and they're like weirdly so involved while also being so distant at the same time. Like their lives are all so intermingled, but they're so cutthroat and so distant. Honestly, I don't even really know what to judge it. Aware Welcome 8866 commented, "Everybody sucks here. I'm not sure your sister-in-law is going to intuit that she's been removed from the group because she no longer shares her location, and she doesn't let your mom see the grandkids enough. Yes, your sister-in-law isn't playing fair with the grandkids, but this is one of those problems you have to discuss if you want to see change." Our next story is, "Am I the jerk? Opened a jar of sauce to use some and put the rest in the fridge." So, to preface this, my 18-year-old male, mom, 47-year-old female, usually has no issue with opening jars of red sauce, using a little, and then putting them in the fridge and using them for a meal later on. My dad does it, I do it, she does it, my grandma does it. She has never expressed a problem with it before. This is important. It's also important to note that I am autistic. So tonight, I opened a jar of Alfredo sauce. I asked my brother, 12-year-old male, for help with opening the jar, and mom starts freaking out and saying not to open it. But by the time she said anything, it was already open. So I used the sauce in my pasta, and she starts complaining that it can't be used for a meal now. Thankfully, I had the self-control not to say my immediate response out loud, and instead said, "Yes, it can. It's not like I stuck my fingers in the jar." And now she's moping on her phone and acting like I've committed a federal offense. Did I do something wrong? Am I the jerk, or is this stupid? ETA, I closed the jar and put it back when I was done with it. Because it's Alfredo, once it's open, you're supposed to refrigerate it. She's never had a problem with this before. Even with other cream-based sauces, she never said that I couldn't open the Alfredo until it was already open. ETA 2, there were 2 jars. I opened and used only one. So I guess my 2 questions would be, was she planning to use it where she needed all 2 jars? And the other one is, not to get like too parental or anything, but was OP the one that bought that Alfredo sauce? Maybe this is just a learning experience to be a little bit more accommodating and making sure to clear things are okay to use before popping them open, even if it does seem like everybody else was doing it. Federal Ferret 970 commented, "She may have had plans for the sauce and needed the full jar, so when she told you to stop, you absolutely should have and found something else." Our next story is, would I be the jerk if I didn't let my daughter go to her friend's 16th birthday party? Context, my daughter is 15 and got invited to go out for dinner, really lunch, at a Korean barbecue joint near us for her friend's 16th. My daughter has been dying to try Korean barbecue, and her friend is renting out a karaoke room. On the invitation, however, it says all the kids invited are required to bring $80 to pay for their own food and give back to the girl's mom for the karaoke room costs. I think this is BS. If you invite someone, you should be at least offering to pay. At least that's how I was raised. And Korean barbecue, that stuff's not cheap. Don't know about other places, but the restaurant my daughter was invited to charges like $60 for one meal, which is expensive. And expecting these 15 to 16-year-olds to bring that money is insane. The food itself is enough, but what really doesn't make sense to me is why is my kid expected to pay back for the karaoke room that wasn't even her idea? This is turning into a rant, so to cut things short, I usually wouldn't have had an issue just giving her the money, even if it was annoying. But my husband got laid off recently and money is tight. I really don't know if I'll be able to afford to give her $80 for food that, in all honesty, I don't think she'll even like. My daughter is very picky, so I really don't think she'll like anything other than maybe the meat. Anyway, I feel really bad telling her she can't go, especially since she's been struggling to make friends lately and is finally being invited to something. The guilt I'd feel not letting her go is tremendous, but I really can barely afford it right now. I'm sure I could make it work if I tried, but it would just be so much easier to have her tell her friend she's busy or something. Anyway, would I be the jerk if I don't let her? I think OP would be the jerk if they just straight up said no, like say you're busy or whatnot. I would say OP definitely needs to have a good conversation with their kid and explain the circumstances, and maybe ask their kid if they would be alright if OP could reach out to the parent and maybe see if something could be worked out here. Obviously, I think it would be a bad idea if OP just went rogue and went straight to the parent and said, "Listen, money's a little tight, can we work something out?" and risk that getting out and kind of embarrassing their kid. But with their kid's blessing, I feel like maybe that would be worth a shot. Maybe? Cranky Biker commented, You would be the jerk if you don't handle this conversation well. Explain that money is tight and that you don't love the way the invitation was handled, but do not discourage her because of things she might not like to eat. You should not pre-filter activities that she might not enjoy. That's part of growing up. She has to go and experience these things for herself. Maybe meet her in the middle and explain that you'll need some extra help with chores and stuff to help offset the cost, like in advance on some future allowance money. You're not the jerk for thinking this is a fairly rude invite for teenagers, essentially putting all the parents in a tough spot. The venue should 100% be covered, if not the food too. Our next story is, am I the jerk for yelling at my girlfriend and kids for constantly waking me up? Okay, so I'm the sole provider in our house. I work 60 plus hours a week, 12 hours a night, 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. I get home from work around 10:30 every morning and hang out with my girl, the kids for a couple of hours, and then lay down from around 12:20 to 1 p.m. Normally, this sleep lasts around 2 to 3 hours before I'm up again because the oldest gets home from school. I'm up from then till around 7 p.m. and then I lay back down because I get up at 9 p.m. to start getting ready for work. But there's never a guarantee that I'm actually getting any sleep. Kids are noisy and I don't fault them for that. The youngest that are home all day are 4 and 1. Usually I can sleep through them playing, but what I can't sleep through is my girlfriend constantly screaming at the top of her lungs at them every time they inconvenience her and make her get off the couch where she plops herself most of the day. Normally, I don't say anything and try in vain to fall back to sleep, so most days I'm usually only getting 2 to 4 hours of actual sleep before I'm back at work for another 12 hours. Yesterday, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I went out there and screamed at her to shut up. My thoughts on this are, if you don't have enough respect for me and the fact that I bust my butt 12 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week to provide for you and our family, to try and limit your screaming and nonsense all day, then I'm not going to respect you or the fact that I had to get out of bed to come do this. She proceeded to start sobbing and sent the kids to their room and to be quiet because I'll come out and scream at them again. She tried to make it seem like she was the victim, and it bugged me because normally I'm very mild-mannered, and I understand that the kids aren't going to be completely silent all day, but there's only so much sleep deprivation I can take before I finally hit my limit. So my question is, am I the jerk for finally losing it and yelling at her? I mean, I'm no expert, and I completely understand that you gotta do what you gotta do to survive and get by, but OP's definitely not getting enough sleep, and it's probably going to complicate things quite a bit. I don't know if the partner all throughout the day is just slacking in general and more could be done, but honestly, with the way OP's taking care of themselves, it's probably going to lead to more blow-ups like this, just because, realistically, most of your waking moments are gonna feel tired and cranky and awful. NC Kala commented, "Not the jerk. She can take the kids outside for some exercise to help them burn off that energy. You have to get some good rest, even if it means you may have to rethink this relationship. So there are at least 3 children at home. Are any or all of these children your bio kids? How long have you been dating and living together?" OP responded commenting, 3 kids, yeah. The oldest 2 are hers, youngest is ours, but I consider them all mine. We've been together for 3 years, but only living with each other for 3 months. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.